I've always found sunflowers so inspiring. How you can stand before them and just get lost in the color and beauty. I love how they face the sun. I love how you can go to a field and just be so inspired. I'm mixed media artist Cherie Burbach, and I want to show you how a recent trip to the sunflower farm inspired this painting, which I'm titling Breezy Sunflowers. The supplies that I used for this painting include acrylic paint, a canvas, really any size, but I used a 20 by 20 inch. You'll need the basics like paint brushes, water, paper towels, all those things that you use when you paint, and a spray bottle because we're going to make these drippy and breezy. So let's talk more about the acrylic paints that I used. It was a variety. You'll see I have golden fluid acrylics, my two favorite colors, phthalo green and green gold. I used an orange and a marigold in Holbein acrylics. I have quinacridone Nico Azo gold in golden regular body and some white paint in regular body. I like to mix the different types of acrylics when I'm doing a project like this. I'm an intuitive painter, which means I always start with the feel that I have when it comes to a picture. So for this picture, I'm thinking about those breezy elements that I felt at the sunflower farm. You know, the sun is shining, the sunflowers are blowing in the wind. I feel the light breeze on my face, and it just feels very peaceful and kind of like easygoing. And that's what I'm looking for in this picture. So I start by just putting the colors that I enjoy on this painting. I'm starting with the colors that I saw, yellows and greens. I'm using that marigold and the phthalo green and the green gold, and I am using a little bit of white, and I'm mixing it all directly on the canvas. I do this quite often. Rather than mixing on my palette, I just let it flow on the canvas and see what colors come up. I like having the variety in the background. I'm covering the canvas with the bits of color, and I just spread the color around as I feel. So I'll add that green to one area and then to another. I'll add the yellow to one area and then to another, and I let it all just mix and blend. And that's what I want for the background, just a variety of the colors that I saw at the farm, and a variety of the colors that will be in the painting. At the sunflower farm, really what I'm remembering most is just how gorgeous and large and tall those sunflowers were. And the color was just amazing. Once the background is dry, which doesn't take very long because it's very hot outside, I use a mixture of white and the marigold to create a color blocking, which is just the placement of these flowers. So I'm allowing the paint to mix directly on the canvas, and I'm using a rounded brush and just bold, breezy, light strokes. And I'm just sketching out essentially where the placement of these flowers is going to be. I'm using the white and the marigold and mixing it directly on the canvas. And then with each step that I paint, I think back to the sunflower farm because this was my inspiration. So I go back in my mind to what I felt like when I was there. I just felt so overwhelmed, happily so, by how tall and beautiful these sunflowers were. To create this breezy feel on the canvas, I am using a spray bottle, and I'm allowing the paint to just drip down. And to me, this creates a looseness and kind of a freedom that you can feel on this canvas. So I do that throughout. Every time I add a layer of color, I make sure that I spray it and allow those drips to continue down the canvas. So then I turn my attention to the centers of the flowers. And I'm using a quinacridone Nico Azo gold in regular body acrylic to create the base of the center. I like the gold undertones of this color. I use it a lot in my paintings. It's brown and it's gold and it has a lot of depth. And I go throughout the painting and add the centers. And again, I use a spray bottle. You can see the detail that comes up when the water drips down. I use a spray bottle to allow everything to drip down. One of the things that stood out to me when I was at the sunflower farm was that every once in a blue moon, I would see a flower that was completely different, and it would have orange, and it just looked like it didn't even come from the rest of the flower field. So I wanted to create a group of flowers that all looked like that. I was really drawn to those oranges. So I'm using the orange from the Holbein acrylics, and I'm going over the base kind of color blocking that I had put down as a way to add depth to these petals. Using the same motion, which is a round brush, and just lightly and loosely adding the petals to each flower. And again, I allow the colors to blend with the water and just drip down. And I do that every time I add color to the canvas, even on the side there, because I always make sure I finish all the edges. And I go throughout the entire picture and do that and allow that to drip down and create that breeziness on the canvas. I turn my attention back to the height of the sunflowers and the stems. They're just as impressive as the flower itself to me. So I add the stems to my painting, and I'm doing very simple stems. I'm allowing the phthalo gold mixed with green gold to create a long stem and then some leaves here and there. And I just go through every flower and I add them little by little. I add water after each application, and again allow that to drip down and blend with the rest of the flowers that are on there. And then I add a little bit more depth and shading. I add white mixed with green gold, and I go through each leaf and stem and just add a little bit more color. I'm using a large round brush for this, and my motion is fluid and a very light touch on this canvas. And as I add one layer, I go back over each one and add another. Same process, just adding depth of color layer by layer. And with every application, it gets a spritz of water so that it can drip down. This helps it in the heat because I'm painting in very hot weather, and it also helps it blend. I'm going back to the Holbein Marigold, and right over the orange, I'm adding another layer. So I'm adding that throughout the painting on each flower. Sometimes the color blends in a little bit with the orange, and sometimes it stands out, and I'm allowing it to do that. And using the same process of spraying it down after I add the color. I like the depth of that marigold color. It just is so vibrant. I am really happy when I use that color on there, and I like it with the orange. So I'm turning my attention back to the centers, and again I'm adding another coat of the quinacridone Nico Azo Gold. And I'm just going back over and adding some water. And here's what the finished painting looked like. I normally add lots more pigments and elements, and my friend saw this painting and begged me to leave it the way it was. My friend is an artist also, and so I decided to listen to her and mocked it up just to see what it would look like in different applications. And I agreed with her for this particular painting. I love the kind of simple breezy elements that were in the painting. I decided to see what it would look like with a frame, and I like that. And with a vase of sunflowers and a nice frame on the wall, and also in a different type of wall, a painted wall would make it stand out. and one that was placed in different types of rooms would make it stand out. And I played with it a little bit and sat with it before I made my final decision. And I agreed with my friend in the end and liked it the way it was. And it's hanging on the wall now. And so I was happy with that. So if you like sunflowers as much as I do, you might enjoy my stupendous sunflowers e-course, which is 10 mixed media projects to paint and sew. It's available at my website. If you do a sunflower painting, please be sure to tag me on social media, and I can't wait to see what you create.